Okay, so before we jump into today's teaching content, is there any question from yesterday that you might want to ask or something you want to discuss? Was there anything? No, all good?
I
Right.
actually, my gallbladder is really hurting since yesterday. So, yeah,
Is it?
just wanted to, yeah, still hurting. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a
Yeah.
good sign. Something's working, so we might want to work on it today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
we probably do that by the end of the session today. Yeah.
Thank you, Maya.
Just remind me of it. Okay, good. Right. So let's go into our teaching content. Let me just share my slides with you. Here we go. Okay. Okay. So part 3 of module 2, where we're talking about the words that we apply and other topics, but also the words that we apply in a family constellation. Um, we are talking about the last of the three, thank you, which is technically two words, but in Germany it's one word. So it's just that the translation is two words. So we take it as one. Um, so when do we apply thank you? What is the energy of thank you? Where does it stand for? This is all part of today's teaching content, and of course our lovely exercise we will also do with the thank you. So we have rounded all up. Um, so we are looking at also today at the morphogenetic field. This is a term that you, if you are not already, have to be very familiar with, because that is the scientific basis of family constellation work, right? And I want to remind you, as always, we are nothing doing anything airy-fairy here. It's neither paranormal nor esoteric nor anything like this. It is a scientific work, yeah, worth studying. It has a scientific background. And the morphogenetic field is a term that will lead us to the scientific background of the work we are doing. MFRH stands for morphic or morphogenetic, which is which you can use both. Field resonance healing, a word that I have created because I think it is encompassing everything we do. We work always by everything we do, even if it's a rebirthing or a regression. We are always working with the morphogenetic field and how it resonates with the family system and with the client, and in the wake of that enables the healing, right? We are looking at the word thank you. We are looking at the third dynamic today, I follow you. We are also looking at trauma, what trauma is and how it comes up in family constellation and how we can heal it. And finally, we are looking at finding what means, not only in words, but also in gestures, eyes, eye contact, eye movement, and body movement. So let's start with morphogenetic field. The morphogenetic field is a term that is based on a study of Dr. Rupert Sheldrake. He is a scientist from England. Who knows him? Hands up. Julie? Yeah, wonderful. Mana as well. Wonderful. If you have not heard anything of him, please go. Not now, but whenever you want and have time, and Google him and look, watch the YouTube videos that are available and the books you can find. He is an amazing scientist. Um, he has stepped out of the confines of the scientific society, and has proven that science and consciousness is one and not opposing each other, which is an amazing, if you know this, how science works, this is a great, a very bold step forward in uniting that what is apart. And he is really mm, tried to be outcasted for that, but was not successful. So he's still in office, which is even more amazing. So that is just proving that the truth is something you cannot hold back forever or suppress it forever. Um, we will look at a video and YouTube video together right now because he explains so brilliantly the morphogenetic field and how it works in the field of biology. He's a biologist. And how this applies in family constellation. He has actually also made a video of that, which we don't watch together, but you are welcome to watch it later on YouTube. He has also met with Bert Hellinger. Bert Hellinger has read about the morphogenetic field and immediately connected it to the work that he has discovered with the groups, which he calls family constellation. And so they got together and has discussed that indeed what Bert Hellinger is seeing in a family constellation is the work of the morphogenetic field, which was also interesting for Rupert Sheldrake to find out, because before he has been introduced by Bert Hellinger to family constellation, he didn't know of it, but now he's a great fan. And he's also talking about that in public. So let me, that's a little bit of an experiment. Last time it didn't quite work, but this time it should. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and now I'm going to share the screen here. And I just have, oh no, hang on. I have to first of all swap my audio. That was the trick.
Can I say, Maya, that I'm very impressed with your technology management now, how that evolved. It's awesome.
Morphic resonance is a connection across time from the past to the present. And it's a process that occurs between organized patterns of activity on the basis of similarity. What it means, in effect, is that each species has a kind of collective memory. So every giraffe tunes in by morphic resonance to the form and to the behavior of previous giraffes. Every crystal, as it crystallizes, tunes in to the way that previous crystals of the same chemical crystallized in the past. So there's a kind of memory given by morphic resonance in all kinds of things. And in the realm of animal behavior, for example, it leads to quite striking predictions. If rats learn a new trick here in London, then rats all around the world should be able to learn the same trick quicker, just because the rats have learned it here. The more that learn it, the easier it should get everywhere else. And there's already evidence that this actually happens from studies of rats in laboratories. When lots of rats have learned something, other rats all around the world find it easier to learn. And this doesn't depend on any normal kind of connection between the different rats or the places. It happens because of morphic resonance on the basis of similarity. The same applies to crystals. When a new chemical is made for the first time, it's usually very hard to crystallize it. And as time goes on, it gets easier to crystallize all around the world. And I think the reason for this is that morphic resonance connects up the crystals so they tune into a kind of collective memory. So morphic resonance works through morphic fields, the organizing fields of chemicals and biological systems. And the word morphic comes from the Greek word for form. So it's a kind of resonance to do with form, pattern, and organization.
Oh, it's good to hear the original tone from him. So when you that was just a very brief explanation. And when you transfer now his findings from, oh, what's that? Hang on, just close that down. So when you do the link from what he says, the crystals or the rats or whatever, to a family system, then that is exactly the same, right? Every system has a morphogenetic field which stores information that is passing beyond time and space. As he said, there needs to be no connection, physical connection, right? And what the morphogenetic field holds and information is available to each member of the family. Now, the step further that Bert Hellinger did was you can actually put representatives for the family system up, right? So it's not that the family needs to be there, it could be represented by others that are also having the ability to tune into the morphogenetic field. Now, why is that? How is that even possible? I think that is the real mystery that we have to look at, which is quite logical if you look closer, because you, as a helper, you are becoming part of the family system. For the time that you have the intent to help and be part of the family system, and through your presence, you know, these are the only prerequisites you need to be able to tune into somebody's family system and represent there. Now, yes, Julie.
Sorry, Maya, I just had a question. Would being part of that as a representative, if you had similar things going on in your life, because I know yesterday we had 2 gallbladder issues, would that start to heal that for somebody that's not in the family system but is representing, you know?
Yeah, so this is what happened when you are chosen by the morphogenetic field as a representative. Which is very distinct often and allows. So this is kind of the deal that you have, right? When you agree to help somebody else's family system through representing a family member, and you're tuning in with the morphogenetic field, then it vice versa will work on your issue as well. Hmm? So that's the beauty about this work. So it does work multiple ways. Also, what also does this tuning in with the morphogenetic field is has also a firewall. So it's not possible to misuse it in any way, shape, or form for something like you would think of like black magic or something, yeah? So you sitting in your, sitting on your sofa, thinking of somebody you dislike, thinking, oh, I just tune in the family system and mess around there. That's not happening, right? Because there is no approval there. There's no approval. The approval comes from a pure heart, so to speak, to help the family system. That is the entrance card. Hmm? There is no other way to enter this system other than that, right? And also, if somebody kind of gets information from somebody else's morphogenetic field by coincidence, which happens, right? You sit in the bus next to somebody and all of a sudden you kind of know that this guy next to you has a sister or something like that, yeah? That can happen, but it will not reveal any circumstances, right? It will not show you more than that. So there is some energetic connection when you're close to somebody, sometimes involuntarily, but it will not, it is not the work we are doing, right? That is different to it. When we're doing the work, we are committing to do the work. We're showing up like in a workshop, and we come with a pure intention to help the family system and ourselves, of course, and our family system. And that's really all that is needed to tune in. This is why everyone can participate. Everybody. They don't need to have a specific education. They don't need to believe in any. They don't even need to believe in the morphogenetic field. For the morphogenetic field, this doesn't count. And I will give you an example, which is from a few years ago when I had a free talk in a larger city. We were inviting people for just 2 hours talk about family constellation to make it known in the area. And I don't know, it's 30 or 40 people came to this event. And most of them have never been, right? And instead of me talking for 2 hours, I just talked briefly, and then I wanted to demonstrate family constellation. So I asked somebody to come up on the hot chair and we talked about the issue. And then I think I was the one who chose representatives. And then I chose a man, a middle-aged man, a youngish middle-aged man. And he was obviously a bit nervous. And he was standing there and he said, I don't know what to do. And I said, you don't know nothing, you don't need to do nothing. And he was still a little bit unsure and, very, not very much, um, how can I say, he thought he cannot help at all because he didn't know what to do. So then we had a family constellation and we had to have a line of men, obviously, because that was the issue there. And I always ask him, so how do you feel? He said, I feel nothing. I'm so sorry. He was so embarrassed. Hmm? He said, oh, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't feel anything. I can't tell you anything. And he was like, he wanted to sit down and said, choose somebody else. I said, no, 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 that's all good. And then the next one was chosen and the next one and the next one. And guess what? They all felt nothing. Yeah. And then I think we came to the fifth or sixth generation when the first man was chosen who actually felt something. And then we did an interrupted movement towards father with all the men who felt nothing. And then we came to the first one and did the interrupted movement with him as a representative. And after we did that, I said, how do you feel? He said, oh, I feel great. See? And he had no idea what was going on, what he was doing. He felt all the time he's a failure. But in fact, this is why the morphogenetic field chose him as a representative, because this was the problem in the male lineage of this family, right? And this is how you know the morphogenetic field is very precise in that, and you always need to trust that this whatever has been chosen is the right one, and your job is to work with it. Yeah, and to see the little signs, right? And always reassure everyone that they don't need to do anything. They don't need to make things up, they don't need to think, they don't need to say even anything, because you can see, and we talk about guests just later on today, you can see how they feel. You don't even need to ask them how they feel if you take your time and observe. So that was just a little story to tell you that everybody can do it and everybody's benefiting from it. They just need to be brave enough to come. Yeah. And that is actually the hurdle, because lots of people feel they are not strong enough, you know, to go through either their own family dramas or being part of other family dramas, right? So everybody who's coming to a workshop has already shown a great um, bravery, right? Just to show up. So that is always something, even if you have a difficult client, that's always something to worship and be grateful for. Okay, so let me share my charts again with you. So what else do we want to know about the morphic field? So how it works in family constellation. I have briefly touched it. So you have a system, which is your family system, and we know from the first orders of love who belongs to the family system, which can be either blood related or other people through destiny, like perpetrator, victims, advantage giver, or advantage taker, or former partners or partners, right? They are not blood related, but they belong to the family system. Now, the family system forms a morphogenetic field, exactly how Rupert Sheldrake explained. It's a field of information who works beyond space and time. It stores information, that's all it does. And this morphogenetic field is available to be tapped into by the client who is member of the family system and the help of the people who have willingly agreed to represent family members. Yeah. And then the information that the morphogenetic field wants to share will be available to the representative and to the facilitator, of course, right? Facilitator, of course, is also part of the morphogenetic field, a part of the family system and connected to the morphogenetic field um, through availability and intent. Then the information is shared. Then, through the great work of Bert Hellinger, we know where the disorder is after a while, up through observation. And then we can apply the words or the gestures that are needed to restore order. By, for example, balancing or by uniting. Yeah. Whatever is needed in this circumstance is we help this family system to restore order. And when the order is restored, this information that was a traumatic experience and therefore stored in the morphogenetic field as information is transformed into love. Love that flows. So love that flows is nourishment for the family soul. And so the information is kind of deleted from the morphogenetic field because it has been transformed into nourishment for the family soul. Therefore, descendants will not suffer from the same dynamic anymore because the memory of the dynamic is gone, transformed. This is the great work of family constellation. It does relieve the descendants as well. When the source has been addressed of the problem. Meaning the first occurrence, because in family systems we have to deal with repetition, repeated family pattern. But when the source is found and addressed and the love has been enabled to flow right there, then the descendants will be free as well. There's another video that you can watch later when you recap this recording. Take your time and watch that. That's where Rupert Sheldrake actually talks about morphogenetic field and family constellation. It is also sometimes this morphogenetic is a word from Latin, as he has said. It's morphic like forms. It is also called the informing field in English. So that's the same. It's not another field. It's just another way to express it in English in case you hear that. So how the why is it not coming up? Yeah. The morphogenetic resonance, how can that resonate with other people? How is it possible? That is, we are tuning, we are going in the same frequency, right? So we are vibrating in the same frequency as the morphogenetic field when we are part of the workshop. This is why it is paramount that everyone in the workshop is, how Bert Hellinger said it, collected. I don't know whether it's in good English term. It's translated from German. I would probably say assertive rather than collective. You get the idea, right? So that is not a room to chit chat and have a cup of tea and then get up and say, okay, let's, this is, you have to resonance with the field by taking it really serious. Hmm? So coming back to this example from this guy who showed up, well, probably because a partner wanted to go and he had no idea what he was up to, and then found himself representing and not feeling anything, right? He took it really serious to an extent that he was embarrassed. He didn't took it lightly. And that is what you have to establish in the family constellation workshop. This how can I say, this energy that allows everybody to really tune in with the morphic field. It works beyond time and space. We see that on and on and on, and every time we do a family constellation, we can see it. So we don't need any proof of that. But if you need proof of that, Rupert Sheldrake has studied that over 20 years now, and he's been writing lots and lots and lots of scientific paper about it. So if feel free to self-study this. It's a very interesting topic. And also, as more information you have, if you want to share it with others who have no idea what family constellation is, who are probably academic or coming from their mind a lot, then it helps tremendously to have this information and the speech of language, present to talk in an elevated form about it, right? So now we know that the morphogenetic field exists. We know it exists beyond space and time. We know how we tap into the information of the morphogenetic field. We know how the participants can become part of it and how they can resonate with the field and get the information. Now the question is, how is it possible that words and gestures heal in the field, right? This is a whole different topic. Hmm? And this is, if you think of, um, how can I explain that? So let me just see. So words, there's also a scientific term for words, which is created, I think, first in the 1990s by Csikszentmihalyi. Who knows him? Csikszentmihalyi? Anybody? He's an amazing scientist. He has wrote some very interesting book about emotional intelligence and all of this. So he has created this word meme instead of gene. So we know what a gene is. A gene is an information in the DNA of a body who can be transferred to another generation, right? And then they have the same genes. This takes a lifetime. A generation counts probably for 25 to 30 years, right? A meme is a word, a thought that somebody thinks of and then creates a word out of it. And once it leaves the mouth, it's out there and it's transforming. It can never be taken back. And it has a great impact on relationships. Even to plants, when you speak to plants, they grow better. You can speak to fish in your aquarium and they are healthier, right? Words have an extreme impact on others. How is that possible? right? But that's a fact. And the word doesn't need 30 years to recreate itself. It's just an instant. So it goes much quicker. Hmm? So with a word that is speaken in the right time and the right language, in the in family constellation, the right dynamic, the right word, one of our strong words has an immediate impact on the relationship. So it's vice versa. You are tuning in to the morphogenetic field. The morphogenetic field is tuning in with you, right? So it takes this information into the field. And that is where it heals, because it rewrites the information that it formerly had. Yeah. So the trauma that is stored in the morphogenetic field is rewritten with the reconciliation of the persons who were separated due to the trauma. And so this new information is the one that is resonating with the morphogenetic field. And since it is not traumatic anymore, the morphogenetic field transforms it into nourishment, nourishing love for the family soul. And gestures are the same, actually. Gestures can, as words, like they are synonyms. Like if you know how powerful a sign languages is for those who cannot speak words, it is totally equal, right? To use gestures. So it's just another way to talk. And this is why it has the same effect. Death doesn't matter because we are resonating beyond time. So we are talking on a soul level. Souls are going on a journey. They don't die. And if that is a new concept to you, I have written recently a lot of blog posts about it. So if you would like to read them on the website. And then also we will talk about that in module 4 in great detail, how to conceive that, that souls live on and information live on. And trauma does live on. And these memories live on. This is all living on, right? There is not much to death. But we will talk about that in module 4, so we won't do that here. But what we know is by observation, when we are in the family constellation, we are always dealing with generations of generations that are already passed away, and they show up very alive in the family constellation. So, any questions to the topic morphogenetic field before we go on to our word? Thank you. Is there anything that comes to your mind you want to ask or discuss?
So when you are part of a relationship and you are part of the morphogenetic system of that person, the field of the other person, how long does it take for you to get detached from his morphogenetic field? Is it when the relationship finishes?
As a former partner, you will always be part of it.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that this is impacting you as such, right? That would just mean that so let's say your former partner goes to a family constellation because let's say he has a new partner and they want children and they can't conceive. Then he would go, if he is, if he's clever, he would go, or guided, he would go to a family constellation and look at this issue. And then experienced facilitator would suggest to choose a representative for his partner, for himself, and for his former partner. And that would be you, right? So somebody else, and you don't need to know about it, and you won't feel anything or anything, somebody else would represent your soul in this relationship. And then this representative would be able to, either through words or gestures, to express if you are still attached somehow to him or not. And if you are the reason why they can't conceive or not, right? And that meaning you is not you in person, that meaning your residue, yeah, residue of energy that you still put into him, so to speak. Yeah. And that will always be the case. But if you have cleared your relationship with him and he with you, and you can do that on your own terms with family constellation, for example, then when you would be chosen as a representative, then it would look like that everything is okay and you are not the reason for them not to conceive. So then the facilitator have to look somewhere else to find the source of the problem. But no, you will always be part of the family. This is why to agree to a relationship is quite a thing, right? So it is nothing that you would do if you know about all the consequences. You probably would, be careful. I share with you another story. Sophie Hellinger, but a wife who was working with him, or she's still working. Um, she had in one constellation where I was present, asked the young woman who was the client to choose a male representative for every sexual partner she had. And she was a normal girl, she was mid-20 or something, and she was a normal girl, or end 20, I don't remember. And, and she started to count, and, if you count for yourself silently, you may end up with very soon over 10 or something, right? And that's, not even much for many people. So I don't know how many it was, but it was about 10 or so, or over 10, and she put them all up. And for the new partner, this was super overwhelming, right? Obviously. And the conclusion was in this family constellation that every sexual partner is part of the family constellation, and every partner that you choose then for a more lasting relationship is overwhelmed by it, right? Now, I was not a fan of this constellation. I did not understand what kind of healing process this should be. And I found it too, it was more like a demonstration than a I mean, I don't know what actually was there to be demonstrated. And I do not agree with this in totally. I don't find through my work with family constellation in the last 15 years a single case where the amount of sexual partners somebody had an impact on the current partnership. I just never saw that, right? So just to let you know, sometimes you go away and that's maybe not concluding anything. You need to be able to drop it and say, well, it doesn't conclude anything. That's. So I think if you want to put up a like a representative for every sexual partner your client had, everybody would be overwhelmed with this site, wouldn't it? I mean, this is not saying anything, right? But to pick the former partner who has really a heartfelt connection and who, through you choosing a new partner after that, is still in a way, you know, not worshipped for letting go of you. Put it that way, yeah, where we talk about today, because this is the word thank you that you need for. Still in this connection, this partner will have an impact of your new relationship. Yeah. And that is what you can actually see in a family constellation, and that is what you actually can clear. to allow the new relationship to flourish and have children. That's very often the case. The very often the sole reason behind uh, uh, being unable to conceive for a couple is that a former partner has not been thanked enough. So we will go through that today. So let's look at the energy of thank you and when we really need that. So thank you is an expression of gratitude, obviously. Hmm? But that's only one thing. Thank you is also an act of giving. Remember, please was an act of receiving. Yeah? But saying thank you is also an act of giving. And in the English, you also say you give thanks to, right? Which is interesting because that's exactly what you do. It's an act of giving. Thank you is also a means to balance out an unbalanced relationship if there is no other way. So in a relationship where one has received more than one can give, there's always a thank you as an equivalent giving to balance out a relationship. Hmm? So how do we apply thank you? First of all, we can apply thank you to acknowledge someone. We can apply thank you if it is time to leave a relationship because the please is binding and creating and bonding, and the thank you is the opposite. You know, with the energy of the thank you, you be able to leave behind, to finish, to balance everything out that isn't being balanced out, and able to be free, to leave. The thank you is very important if you want to go ahead. Hmm? And since we say a lot of please often, and I'm sorry, we don't say enough thank yous. But that is also a good reason because when we are very truthful to ourselves and our soul, we don't want to end often. We are afraid to cut the cords, leave behind, turn around, go somewhere new, leave people behind. You know? It is not so easy because we feel a sense of loss if we do that. But rest assured, without leaving, there is no evolvement. You know, you cannot have both. You cannot have the old friends, the old emotions, everything, and become a new person that is free of this. This is not possible, right? Breaking the chains. You need a thank you for that, right? Or cut the cords, or however you want to call that. Closing a relationship always needs a thank you. A relationship is not closed if the thank you is not available to both partners. Same as with parents. A thank you is not available to a child when there was not the please before and the receiving of everything that is able to receive from the parents. So yes, the thank you is available to the parents when a child has truly grown up and is truly able to transform the love of the parents that has been received into their own love and are ready or is ready to give it to their children, projects, whatever, whatever the adult child now wants to achieve in life. Uh, you need the thank you before you choose a new partner or before you have a child or you want a child. So let's look at the thank you in our three relationships. One relationship, child to parent, the other relationship, parent to child, and the third relationship is equal relationships, which we call romantic relationships, right? So from a child to a parent, the thank you would say is here, and that is also an acknowledging what is thank you for giving me life, because that's just simple truth. Thank you for nourishing me. So remember, first we said, please nourish me. No? And now we say thank you. Obviously, this can only be said when the nourishment has been received. So the please comes first in the relationship from child to parent. Thank you for always being there for me. And this is the thank you that some people in the constellation can't say, or their representatives, because they still held a grudge against the parent not to be there. But when we are able to say thank you for always being there for me, we are talking about the soul connection and the availability to receive the love of somebody who is not present and fulfilling our need, right? Because that is a different story. Let's take a father who has left the family. Hmm? Just because he is not present for a day-to-day caring to the children doesn't mean that his fatherly love is not available, right? It is available through time and space. It's also available when he's already passed on. Yeah. But the child cannot receive this love because the child is holding a grudge. Because in the world of the child, who's now an adult and still holding the grudge, the father should have done specific things, be there at specific times, And this judgment is closing the heart. So the soul cannot receive the love that is there. It cannot be other different. It is always there. That's a law of nature. This cannot be held back. So when in a constellation that is practically by the end, let's say of an interrupted movement towards the father, the child can say, thank you for always being there for me, then you know this is healed. Yeah. If the representative of the child cannot say that, you know it's not healed yet. So more time is needed, more steps are needed, more repetitions. Thank you for caring for me is another thing. The caring for me does not necessarily, but can mean a day-to-day care. For example, if we have a family constellation with adoption, then you know that the adoptive parents are normally not part of the family system, but they can be through destiny. Yeah. And if this is the case, then obviously the child can say, thank you for caring for me to the adoptive parent. Hmm? Thank you for my life. I leave everything else with you in your responsibility. That is a thank you that is available to children who have been abused. So you have these cases, and they are quite common, that there was a childhood abuse in the family. And then obviously this is a trauma where the heart closes of the child and an interrupted movement starts. Now, if this client and as an adult comes to family constellation and works through this trauma, through this interrupted movement with, let's say, the father, yeah, and open the heart to the soul level, on a soul level, to the natural love that the father has for the child, then that is what nourishes the child and makes it able as an adult to move on. However, the hurt or the damage or the actions of the fathers have been done, right? So an unconditional thank you is often not available and maybe even not appropriate, right? So what in this case we suggest to say is thank you for my life. That's without the father, the child would never have been born. And everything, and thank you for your love. You can also say thank you for your for your love, fatherly. I like the word fatherly love, or the natural love of a father. Everything else I leave with you and in your responsibility. It's not mine. Whatever emotions, maybe very inappropriate emotions, were there in this relationship, you can give it back to the one who has opposed that on you, right? You are not holding on to that, obviously. This is cutting the cords. And this is what you do with a thank you. Hmm? You're cutting the cords. So the thank you is not to worship the hurt that has been done. The thank you is to say, okay, whatever was nourishing in my life, I take, and the rest I leave with you. And it's the thank you, it's kind of a thank you for taking it back. Another thank you can also be expressed in I will stay. There are certain situations in the family constellation where that is appropriate. Put it out there, it's not very often, but it can happen. Yeah, that's another way to say thank you. Because although a thank you is always, closing up, freeing off, balancing out, um, in some dynamics, it is important to stay for a little bit longer, or this or that. So this can be part of the thank you as well. So let's talk about thank you in relationships. And that is probably the most important thank yous that you find to be expressed in a family constellation. And it is good to spend a bit of time in there so it can really reach the souls of the partners. So a simple thank you is often not enough. It is more the extended version of a thank you that is finally making the partners to be free from each other. So one of the sentences that has been proven to be very effective is thank you for everything I have received from you. You may keep what you've received from me if you wish. I take responsibility for my part in our separation and leave you with the responsible for your part. And then, if this is appropriate, to say, I give you a place in my heart. Which is nice if a representative can say that. If they can't say that, then so be it. And this is a clear cut which balances everything out, with make sure energies are exchanged, coming back to where they belong, including the regarded emotions and memories. And nobody's taking anything from the other with, because this will be a burden or hindrance in a new relationship. When there are children in a relationship that is parting, then it is also important to say, oh, where is it now? Sometimes it doesn't quite come up. Thank you for our children. Because obviously when you are, hang on, who has children? Hands up. When you have children, you know whatever your partner says or done, whatever horrible, whatever the relationship was, there is still this child that you love, right? And without this partner and his sperm or eggs in the other case around, it wouldn't be there, right? And that is, even if you have no good memories in the relationship whatsoever, there is still this child. Yeah. Now, if you have a really drastic traumatic relationship, like a rape or something like that, yeah. And there's a child from this, and the child is beloved by the mother, then it is absolutely appropriate to cut the cord energetically with this rapist to say thank you for our child. Yeah? Because this is what it is. It has been born through this act. And the mother is grateful for it. Otherwise, the child wouldn't be there. Hmm? And here, in such traumatic a relationship, it is extremely important to clear every darkness out by taking some time and giving back everything that the perpetrator has opposed on the victim. Yeah. But still, it is important, remembering the orders of love, that victim and perpetrator are finding a mutual ground to be together, right, on a soul level. Otherwise, it will continue the trauma. And the child who has been born out of it will carry it. So, although it can be quite daunting when a woman sits on the hot chair and then she said, "Oh yeah, I have a child. I was raped and beaten and whatnot," it can be very challenging. But your work is it to not buy into this emotion, and keep a clear picture of the orders of love. Hmm. So we are going and talk about the dynamic I follow you before we do our exercise and go in the break. Just to recap, we had two other dynamics already, and I make a quick quiz. Hands up. What is the first dynamic we talked about? Mana?
Please.
The dynamic? Okay, fine. Rocio, let's hear you.
Atonement for my sins.
Very good.
Yes.
Yes.
Is it? Yeah.
And what was the second dynamic we talked about yesterday, Alexandra?
Rather me than you.
Very good. Rather me than you. And now the third dynamic is I follow you. So how does it look like? The I follow you dynamic is a violation of the third order of love balance. It is, as always, a deep love to the entangler or the entanglee, however you want to call this other person of the entanglement, that allows. We talk about the client here. The client that is the cause of the client to breach the third order of love balance. Because this client says, okay, instead of allowing the entanglee or the entangler, allowing him to have his own destiny, they say, I do the same. Yeah. Although they never been, on the other end of receiving of this act, whatever it was. Yeah. Right. So there is no balance for their actions. They just say, okay, I follow you. So when does it happen? Often children for their parents and grandparents. And entanglements are often skipping one generation. So it's very, very common that you see an entanglement between like the child and the grandparents, or the parent and the great-grandparents, or the grandparents and the great-great-grandparents. Right? That's most common. It can be a pre-existing dynamic I follow you in the family system. So the I follow you dynamic you see with your client involved in a family constellation can be a repetition of a pattern. So you have to see if there was a pre-existing dynamic. And this pre-existing dynamic does not need to be an I follow you. It can also be a rather me than you, or even an atonement for my sin. So every combination of these dynamics is possible. always start to inquire if the dynamic is repetitive. If you see an I follow you dynamic, you inquire into former generations if there is also an I follow you. And if it's not, then if it's a rather me than you, or if it's atonement for my sins. And if it's none of this, then you know, okay, the source of the problem is right here in this generation. Hmm? How do you see this dynamic? The dynamic I follow you. That is, remember, the rather me than you is the client is looking at the dead, but not the third person, the entangler. In the I follow you, both are looking at the dead, right? Obviously. Yeah. Because the one who is looking at the death, the entangler is going towards it. And now the current generation, the client, is also going the same way. That is how you see the difference of it. And this is almost guaranteed in cases of a suicide. Yeah. It's very, very often. Or in the cases of accidents. For example, fatal accidents. I had once, it's a long time ago, when I was a young lawyer, I had a partner, a business partner. He was in his 40s. He had 4 children, 4 young boys. And we just worked 1 year together. And then one morning in the law office, I got a call that he died in an accident, in a car accident with one of our clients. And so that was, completely out of the blue. And long story short, he had 4 boys, and his widow, his wife, was raising the children on her own. And when the oldest turned 18, he had a car accident and died in the car accident. So, how traumatic that is for the mother. This is heartbreaking, but this is clearly an I follow you dynamic, because already the unexpected death of this really lovely man in his beginning of his 40s under such is already showing a dynamic, right? So if, for example, in this case, the widow would have known about family constellations and would have had the bravery to go to one, she could have prevented the death of her eldest son. But clearly that was not in the cards for this family. And now it is super likely that from the 3 surviving sons, one of these children will probably have the same destiny. Until one has so much love for the family and for for whatever entangler has not been looked at up to now, that they actually go and seek a family constellation and clear that, at least for the future generation. Because this will go on. And then in former times, it was all called a curse, right? People would have just called it the curse. Oh, this family is cursed. Yeah. Well, it is a family. It's just an I follow you dynamic that is repeated in the family all over again. If you hear such a dramatic story, you are kind of convinced, oh, can we not just look at it and help? Of course we cannot, because we are not part of the family system. Yeah. You cannot help anybody who doesn't seek help. It's impossible to do. Suicides, same, absolutely. So, fatal accidents and suicides are very similar. It is just that in suicide there is a conscious decision to do it. In a fatal accident, there's a subconscious decision to do it, right? It's most often the I follow you dynamic. It's often a direct entanglement with the one who has gone, which could be a sibling or an abortion or another accident victim, something like that. So that's possible. And if you have a client talking about the accident, like say, like if you have a client and they said when they're on the hot chair, they suddenly say, "Oh, my father committed suicide." And for some reason my son has suicidal thoughts, yeah, these are the hints that you know, okay, we have to look at an I follow, we might see an I follow you dynamic, right? So how do we tackle that? As always, we start with acknowledging what is. What is somebody who is stuck in the dynamic I follow you? What are they saying? If they would be able to express it, if they would be conscious about it, would be, I'm going as well, right? I follow you in the death means I want to go as well. I want to go where you go, right? And then when this person who is represented in a family constellation is able to speak it out, acknowledging what is, bringing it in the open, it's already half the way to healing. And then we only need to find that what mends. And what is it? To detangle it, meaning to restore the third order of love balance and say, I honor your destiny and leave it with you. You have to balance it out, whatever you have done, not me, right? I can't balance it out just by following you. This is not making anything better. So sometimes the representative cannot acknowledge this in a way like this. So here's it also good to find the little sister of words, like the little form. And a good proven sentence is, I'll live a little bit longer and then I go as well. And this little bit longer can be a whole lifetime, right? That doesn't mean in a year or two, right? But this love, this entanglement, this love is so deeply to the one who is leaving. Like in this example, the firstborn son to his father, right? That this is one of the most difficult entanglements to clear because they don't want to clear it. Claudia.
Can I ask a question to that? So the thing is, I think with me, when I tried to kill myself, it wasn't I follow you, because my mother lost a sister. She tried to kill herself. I tried and I survived. And the thing is, I have no more thoughts of actually wanting to die or whatever. And my mother passed away. So does that mean that this is finished, or can it still pass it on? Can it still go on within my children?
So we have to look at it. I remember when you talked about it, I had another picture. I agree. I didn't see the I follow you dynamic in your suicide attempt. To me, it looked like a possession.
Oh, yeah,
okay. The way you explained it. But as always, we have to look at it if we want to know it. And if we have time, we do it today, or we do it next module, or in a practice workshop, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, but Claudia, yes, if it would be an I follow you dynamic, your child can take it on. Yes.
So, okay, just so does that mean I actually said, no, I don't want to die anymore. It doesn't work and I'm fine. It doesn't bother me anymore. Or I don't feel like I have to go there. So, but still my children could still have that.
Yeah, because If that would be an I follow you dynamic, then you would be in the dynamic as well with somebody else.
Yeah.
So this
Okay.
dynamic is still present, just you are not entangled anymore, but your child can be entangled with the one, you know, who was before you, following
Okay.
the same dynamic, right?
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you.
Rossio.
So I was thinking about suicide and about the suicide rates in New Zealand, right?
Mhm.
Can it be like I follow you instead of in your family, in kind of like the society, like following the society? Because I think that I don't know, I've never seen that many like suicides things, like attempts or anything like that until I got to New Zealand, and I feel like it's kind of like something social as well. Can it be or not? Because there is always the
Yeah.
first person in a family that does it, right?
So
So
I'm
where
not
is
saying that everyone who has committed suicide is in an I follow you dynamic. We need a row of suicides in order to see a dynamic, right? Or a row of fatal accidents. What you are referring to, Rossio, is to me sounds as a different, and it would be interesting to look at it. But therefore, we need somebody who actually wants to commit suicide, or a mother of a child who has tried or succeeded in committing suicide. Yeah, but that would be interesting to see. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I had some observations with suicides. I have in my closer now here that I have experienced, um, and I think it has something to do with the disability to care. And I think that's indeed a social occurrence. I'm not quite sure why that would be in New Zealand more than anywhere else, but yeah, that's what this disconnection is often, I think, amplifying, especially in teenagers or in young adults, the wish to take their own lives because they don't know where to live for. If they don't know, if they haven't learned how to care. If you have not learned what caring means because your parents didn't care, for example, or um, you were resisting their care through trauma, then I think that is then very difficult in a phase where you don't understand what the meaning of life is as such, and you're not worshiping that, especially in teenage times when the hormones are going astray and you doubt everything. And you have problems with peers and this and that and school and whatnot. And when you don't know what care is, and you can't care for yourself. And then it is easy nowadays to order in the darknet or wherever a pill, and without any, you know, any effort from yourself, you can just take the pill and not wake up again. But on another level is, we talk about that in module 4, this obviously doesn't change anything. But so when we talk about the I follow you dynamic in a family constellation, that is when you hear of somebody else in the family system also committed suicide. That is when all the alarm goes on. Yeah, and when you need to inquire into the dynamic. So exercise. So now we have yeah, Abby's here, so we can stick with our group of 3. We do this the exercise to apply the word thank you. And this time you are completely free to choose your mate, your group mate, who they are representing. So just take a moment for yourself and find out whom you think you owe a thank you. And then ask one of your group to represent this one, which could be a partner, an ex-partner, a parent, a grandparent, a sibling, an older sibling, or whoever comes to your mind who is part of the family system, yeah, that you think you want to balance out and not quite a balanced relationship with giving heartfelt thank you to. Okay. And then we take turns, so everybody's a turn. One is the helper, the observer and helper, and the facilitator, so to speak. The other one is the client, and the third one is the representative of the relationship, the other side of the relationship. Yeah. And of course, you don't even need to say who they are. So that's up to you. You can share it in your group or not. You cannot just ask, please represent somebody from my family system. Yeah, you don't need to say who it is. Okay. So we figured out 9 minutes was not enough last time. So we will take, shall we take 5 minutes for each then? Yeah. So we make it 15 then, right? As I said, one is the helper, the other is representing a parent or partner or whoever is part of the family system, and the third is himself as a client. As always, first step is you connect, all three of you, you connect with the morphogenetic field of the family system who you work with. Then the helper is observing the dynamic. And then when the observer says or feels or sees it is right, then he asks the client to say the word thank you. So there is always a right time to do it. Yeah. So the connection to the representative of the other part of the relationship, it needs to be established. And as an observer, you train to see when the heart is open and the time is right to say thank you from the heart. And then you say that, you can say thank you, don't dwell too much, don't do too long sentences. Thank you, you can repeat it 3 times from the heart is most powerful. But if you feel the urge to say where you want to thank for, make it really, really brief, just a few more words, not kind of stories or something like that. Of course, we saw other phrases of a thank you before, so you can use one of them if you feel like that is appropriate. Then we swap roles. So we have now 5 minutes for each. And then after that, we come together, talk about it, and then we go in the break. So let me stop this and make breakout rooms. Any questions? No?
Maya, if it was an ex-partner, can you, or you had a few multiple partners, can you do them in a group or you have to do like individual souls?
Individual, only one.
Yeah. Yeah, just efficiency.
It'll be handy, right? To put them all
you
in
like
one
group
basket.
them all ex-boyfriends and then bye.
I was with you, Emma.
You can try, Abby.
I could do that.
I don't want to say no. You just try it, and
like you don't know whose hanging soul is there,
you just try it. Just try it.
Okay.
If that's what you want to do, just try it. See how it works. Okay, so I see you back again. I'm gonna give you a 5 minutes heads up. Hey, welcome back.
Oh,
Hello. You want to start sharing? Yeah?
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, who's first?
Well, first was me, the observer, and Mana. No. Mana was the client. Claudia was the observer, and I was Mana's mother.
Yeah.
Yes.
No. I think there's confusion here. So the first was Ali wanted to say thank you to her partner, her ex-partner.
Yes,
so I was her partner, she was herself, and Claudia was the facilitator.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, as a partner, it was difficult initially to even look at her. But the minute she said thank you, something in me melted and I felt good about it. There was a resolution as an ex-partner to hear a thank you coming in. In the second round, I was the client. Claudia was my mother, and Alejandra was the facilitator. It was very easy for me to say thank you to my mother, and it was a beautiful dynamic. And in the third, Claudia was the client. She wanted to say thank you to her father, who was Ale. There was nervous excitement with both of them. Claudia felt like a little girl by the time she could say thank you. The father felt very relieved. And as a facilitator, it was very interesting to see the changing dynamics in both of them. So it was a very interesting exercise.
Yes.
Okay, I have a question, Claudia.
Yeah.
Why did you feel like a little girl when you said thank you?
I don't know exactly, but I actually, when I walked towards my father, I was like, I felt like I was about 5 years old.
Okay, so in this case, the thank you is not appropriate.
Oh.
Yeah,
Ooh.
yeah. So what would be a plea? That would be a please situation. So how did saying thank you, Claudia, felt for you when you said in this situation thank you?
It felt good for some funny reason.
Mm-hmm. And who was the father?
I was the
Alejandro.
father.
How was that for you?
I was very pleased to receive the thank you, to hear it, and humbled by hearing it.
Very good.
I need to say something though. When I said thank you, that once I said thank you, and I actually was going towards him sitting on his knee, this is when I felt then 5 years old.
Yeah.
But not when I said thank you.
Yeah. Hmm.
But there's still something wrong.
So yeah, not wrong, but it's certainly something that you need to continue working on.
Okay.
Um. So we leave it there.
Yeah.
We leave it there. Good feedback. Thank you. Yeah, great. Next group. Who wants to share?
So mine, I chose my first boyfriend who passed away. And yeah, it took a while for my representative to be able, like, I think it was Abby, that to say thank you. But we got there at the end. It was good.
Was good for you?
It was good. Yeah. It was my first fiancé. So
very good.
Mm.
And next one was?
Yeah, I went as well. So I called an ex-partner who I thought, but when Rocio channeled, I guess, or explained it, it seemed it was another person. So yeah, so sometimes I guess who you think you had might not end up being that person. So
so
that's
it
what
changed.
happened. Yeah, it changed. So I thought it was someone else, but when she described herself, it was another partner.
So you wanted to put a multiple partner, wouldn't you?
I did, but I asked if you were one soul or.
How did that go?
She said it was one.
It became one. It became one. It was even though I think that it's more about letting the field choose than actually saying I want multiple partners to come in one go.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So the field choose one partner you were not originally thinking of, Abby.
Yes, that's right. I mean, both names were there, but I didn't think it was him, but then it was him. Yeah, so it's interesting.
And how was it when you say the thank you?
Yeah, from the heart. It was nice closure.
Was nice. Good. Julie.
I chose an ex-partner. And it was hard to get to a thank you, I guess. Abby, in the end, did just a thank you for the experience, and that felt quite relieving. Yeah.
So you needed the little version of thank you.
Yes, Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
And
Ross,
that works too.
yeah, did it?
For me, I feel very anxious. Like I have like I was going through a lot of anxiety. I was able to just say kind of like thank you from being safe from me. Like so that's
Putting
the
that
only
wall
thank
up.
you. Yeah, there was like a wall between the two of us, and it was like thank you for that wall that keeps you safe. Like so yeah,
Aha.
I thought it was a very aggressive. It was very yeah, it was yeah.
Okay, but you have a child, right, Julie?
Oh, that wasn't the partner that I did.
Ah, I see.
Yeah,
Okay,
it was
okay.
No,
a
that's another one.
previous boyfriend. Yeah.
Ah, interesting. Okay. So that is probably then a relationship where it would be appropriate to cut the cords completely,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
If especially if there are no children. So this wall could be transformed in a large pair of scissors to cut the chain or the cord, right?
Great.
Good. Yeah, cool. Thank you for sharing. We have our break now, and I'll see you back in 10 minutes. Okay, so let's look at trauma and what it is in the way that we work with it in family constellation and how we deal with it. So the straightforward definition of a trauma is an act of violence which is experienced in either, oh, it's not coming up, yeah, which is experienced in one's own life or comes from an entangled person through one of the three dynamics of family constellation, which is atonement for sins, rather me than you, or I follow you, right? Who has experienced an act of violation, right? So this is what we can see in family constellation. On top of this, there is the interrupted movement towards the mother, which is also considered to, or the father, which is also considered to be a trauma, which is not necessarily an act of violence. Yeah. Okay. So trauma is always the fear of dying, either de facto or perceived. Yeah. So just because somebody, and that is different to the definition in the medical world, right? A trauma can be any kind of damage to the physical body. But when we talk about an emotional trauma in family constellation, it is the emotion of fear, right? Through an act of violence that is imposing the fear of death onto the victim. Either it is really in danger of dying, or the victim perceives it from its perception as a as a way of dying, which is then, if you think of an interrupted movement towards the mother from the perspective of the baby, the fear of dying as well, right? It wants to reach out to the mother. The mother is a source of nourishment, care, security, everything, and the mother is not there. So that is the perceived way of dying, although de facto the baby is cared for by a caregiver, by the father, by somebody else, right? But that is not the replacement. It's not taking the fear of dying away. These trauma, which is either perceived or de facto the fear of dying, leaves a deep wound in the soul. It passes on through epigenetic inheritance. This is a scientific fact. Yeah? You can look that up. There's lots of scientific papers. Since the discovery of epigenetics, like about 15, 20 years ago, the the former believed that genes could be inherited and the genes are responsible for disease and all kinds of things has been overwritten because it's not true. The state of the art in science, or the state of knowledge of current science, is that the genes can be what they are, but they need an epigenetic mechanism to turn on and off the gene, who can then either be damaged or not. Yeah. So even if somebody is born with so-called damaged genes, if they are turned on, they never influence the life. If they are not turned on, they never influence the life of the person. Yeah. So this epigenetic inheritance is what is actually transferring a trauma through the generations in a family system. Now, do you all know what epigenetics is? More or less. So an example would be for epigenetics would be we all have so many the genes are related to proteins. The proteins are deciding which gene is on or off. It's like a switch, right? And that's called epigenetic. So for example, we have a gene for everything, right? Like let the nose grow. So if you're a baby, you're born with a tiny, tiny, itsy bitsy bitsy nose, right? And by the time you're a teenager, your nose has grown to almost its full extent, right? So now imagine this gene would not be turned off. Where would you be now? Where would be your nose, right? Would be somewhere here, right? So, so the gene nose is growing needs to be turned on and off, right? And this is for practically everything. And if this mechanism, which is called epigenetics, is disturbed, in this silly example with the nose, imagine that would be disturbed. The nose would either not grow, which, that is a disease, that, or it would grow too long. Yeah. So that is epigenetic. Now, the damage that can cause a genetic mechanism to malfunction is due to emotional trauma. That is a proven scientific. They just recently have researched it, and it was so interesting because we see that in family constellations since 40 years. Yeah, how this inheritance works from trauma, and now the science is catching up with it. So, as an example, like let's say the generation of a grandfather of your client was in the First World War and was traumatized there, and then comes back with the war trauma, and his epigenetics would be damaged. Now he's probably just depressed, but then he has a son, which is the father of the client. The father is inheriting this epigenetic damage, but he is not depressed because of that. He might has an allergy, it's not related. There's no obvious relationship between the trauma and the epigenetic inheritance. So now this father goes in the Second World War and is also traumatized. Yeah. And he comes back and has a son. Now his son is inheriting the original trauma from the grandfather, and the epigenetic inheritance through the trauma of the father from the Second World War. And now it probably has a severe disease like a dermatitis or any kind of misfunction, or is depressed or something like that, right? And this goes on and on. When the client has a son or a daughter, that would all be inherited again and again and again until this is dealt with in a family constellation. And this is the beautiful work of it. Yeah, they can clear this emotional trauma from when it began in the First World War. So it's not passed on to other children anymore. This is also what we see in an interrupted movement toward the mother. So everything we talk about trauma is also related to that, right? Now, the trauma does stick only if there's a feeling of guilt or shame involved. Yeah. So it's not only the fear of dying or the de facto perceived, it is also combined with either the emotion of guilt or shame, which is always implicating a victim-perpetrator situation. Because the perpetrator feels guilt normally, suppressed, and the victim feels suppressed shame. Yeah. And as we now know, these are the emotions with very low frequency, which are also artificial because they depend on the belief system of guilt or sins, right? However, they are therefore they are not obvious. They are camouflaged by other emotions like anger or grief or sadness, something like that. So you can normally not see shame or guilt in a person. This is the underlying emotion. Now, when this underlying emotion is combined with the trauma, now it becomes sticky and makes an imprint in the family wound. So always look for this emotion in the representatives, because in a family constellation, this emotion comes through. You see guilt or shame, and they can say that, the representative. They say, I feel guilt, or I feel shame. Yeah, or you see it in gestures or in facial expression. So I talked about that already. So just the translation of epigenetics is on top of genes. So it rules the genes. The genes itself are just in service. They don't do much. They are there. And now epigenetic is the mechanism that decides how the genes function. You talked about that. All. So I did an example. So we are here. Now we are thinking about finding what mends. First of all, words. Of course, we talked about the three most important words that will mend or heal or unite what was separated before, which is yes, please, and thank you. But there's also gestures who will heal, and gestures are normally with the hands. And the hands, the tissue of the hands are made of the same um, skin or tissue that the heart is covered in, right? When the heart grows in a baby, then there is a layer of protective fluid, and then there is a tissue around this. I don't know the medical term. And this is actually the layer that extends when the baby grows into the hands. So this is why touch is healing. It connects with the heart. Yeah. This is also why gestures have such a strong impact, especially when you use the hands. Eyes, eye contact, eye movements have also this quality. As you know, maybe the saying is the eyes are the window to the souls, which is quite literally interesting. Then movements. Movements are important. Sometimes words are not needed, but the movement is always needed. Yeah. So we use the word to ignite a movement. Now, what is really healing in the family constellation is the movement itself. So the movement can be either be conducted in a family in a workshop situation where the representative is actually moving towards a way, or in a virtual situation where they envision to do that. But the movement is that what heals. So when you are helping people with family constellation, everything else, the words, the gestures, the eyes are only the helpers to allow the movement to happen. This is why Bert Hellinger also called his work movement of the souls. Yeah. And that was quite a big step from the original family constellation that he started to discover and develop in the 80s and 90s towards the new family constellation in later in the 2000s years. He renamed it Movement of the Souls and later Movement of the Spirit, or Going with the Spirit, because he was kind of looking at it from a higher level. So the movement is key here, or the going is key here. Just by contemplating on something and saying something, nothing really happens. You have to feel the movement. So we have the words of power. Yes, please and thank you. They're in our box, in our toolbox. Very important. Then you have words to strengthen somebody or a relationship, which is now, go, stay, look at, or only. These are words you can use to strengthen a movement or to ignite a movement, either together with one of the powerful words, or on their own, or in a sentence that makes sense in this situation. But then you have also words to weaken, words like but, no, not now, maybe, sometimes, or later. Yeah? And obviously they have normally a negative effect. So these are words you want to avoid. We talked about that at the beginning of this module, that the word no is quite hurtful. It stops a movement. It stops a reaching out movement. It stops pretty much a relationship in their tracks. Yeah. The same is but. But is just a little sister of no. Yeah. If somebody says, "Oh, you look beautiful today," but whatever, you name it, yeah, then all this compliment is gone. It's just gone, you know. So it's a little sister of no. Not now. It's a little bit softer than no. It delays in time, but it's still a no. Maybe it's like a little bit the little sister of but. It's a little bit, sometimes it's too indifferent, doesn't do anything in a family constellation. Yeah. And later is obviously something we sometimes use, but only if we have to. Right. I stay here a little bit longer and then I come later. You know, in the I follow you dynamic, you can use the word later, but it is only when nothing else works, right? So just to get the movement going. You be aware of the power of words and how powerful they is sometimes when you reverse them. Right. So you start with an observation, right? So you ask the representative, what do you feel? And then they say, oh, I see he's angry. They do that often. They not talk about themselves. You ask them, how do you feel? And they say, he's angry at me. And then you say, okay, so say to him, you are angry, acknowledging what is, right? And then they say that, and then something changes. And something doesn't feel right anymore. And then you suggest them to say, to reverse and say, you make me feel angry. And then it turns out that the right thing to say is, I am angry, not you are angry. Right? But you have to guide the representative step by step. Right? If you would, although you know already that he is actually the embodiment of anger, if they can't say it, they can't say it. But to acknowledge what is, you need to lead them in a way that they finally can say it. And that will be the way through reversing the words. So instead of, you see he's angry, he says, no, I'm not angry. The other guy is angry. And then you say, no, you are angry. Then you can see this is going nowhere, right? First of all, you use the word no, which you can't, under no circumstances, use in a family constellation, right? Especially not if you're facilitating it. You always have to acknowledge everything, what happens, right? So the word no is not acceptable. You can't use it. So how would you guide this guy, this representative, to acknowledge that he is angry and not the other one, right? So these are the ways to do that. Always think of the little sister of a strong word, even though, not yet, just a little bit, is not really negative, It's just making it not so daunting to commit. Obviously, it also has not the strong effect as the full word. Like instead of a um, thank you, if you say, okay, even though you have hurt me, I thank you. Yeah. Can you feel how less impact the thank you has? It is still a thank you there, and something if that's all you can achieve, great, because the thank you is there. But it has not the thank. So this is why it is a last resort. You're not starting with that. That's the last resort. Can't versus won't. So if somebody says, I can't look at him, then you can suggest, try, I won't look at him. To take over responsibility and acknowledge that actually you can change it. Because you know that the representative need to look at somebody else in order to apply words, and relate. So if they cannot look at somebody, how do we make them look at them? So that's one thing. So you either work with the representative, suggest, can you look at him? She says, no, I can't look at him. Then say, okay, try to say, I won't, I will not, I don't want to look at him. Yeah. And then something is swapping, and then say, oh, I can actually look at him, because if I change, the way I want it, then it's all of a sudden possible to them. Instead of words, there can be screaming, coughing, vomiting, or laughing. Vomiting means not necessarily that there's something coming out of the mouth, but like the reflex to vomit. Yeah. If a representative is saying they want to scream, cough, vomit, or laugh, or they actually do that, this is just a replacement for saying something that needs to be said. Yeah. So here is the task to find the right word that needs to be said to stop this. If a special place has laughing in a family constellation, laughter never means happiness, right? You would not have a constellation if everything would be happy ever after already. This is a substitute for whatever, anger or fear or shame often, right? Or guilt. This is just a substitute. You have to get to the core of it. Okay, and then there's the thing of no words. That is actually the strongest way. If no words can ignite a movement towards uniting and healing, and it can, that's great. And I remember when Bert Hellinger in his constellation started to use no words. So he called that the multi-dimensional Vorgehensweise. What is the English word for that? The multi-dimensional approach. That's how he called it in German. Yeah. So what he did is, there was a client. He didn't allow the client to say anything. He was just sitting next to him. And then after a while, when he was connected with the morphogenetic field, he asked 10 women and 10 men to stand up and just, go into circle. And then they would just observe, and nobody says anything. And that was very long, sometimes 45, 50 minutes observation, how they moved around. You had no idea who was who. They were not talking, you didn't see anything. But then some laid down, the others changed. And then at one stage, the client, who never spoke a word next to Bert Hellinger, had a sigh of relief. And that was the end of the constellation. So this is possible. I have not seen it very often. It has a very strong impact for sure. It's probably not very beginner friendly, and it's probably also a little bit confusing for the other people of the workshop to observe that, because they seem like they don't get anything. So it's probably this method is probably nothing that you really want to apply, but it is very powerful and is absolutely possible to conduct, to facilitate a whole family constellation with absolutely no words. Okay, let's talk about gestures. So we first and foremost, we're looking at the hands of representatives, right? So the easiest one is the fist. The fist is always suppressed anger. Then when the hands are going up or going down, that all can have like, that meaning. So hands up are kind of, representing a please or a wanting something, a neediness or something like that, right? Hands are down are often, or down is like when not up like this, or down alongside the body is often a refusal to receive. So you can get something out of the gestures, if you will. The head is another one, a way to observe. The head can be up, down, tilted, or circling. So they all have different meanings. So the head up has two meanings. Often it is arrogance. Often it's the arrogance of a child who has an interrupted movement towards the mother or the father and doesn't want to take in anything, right? That is like the nose up there. There's another head up. It can be a devotional head up, and I have seen that often. That's completely the opposite. That is when somebody is completely devotional to higher powers, right? And when you see that, so it's like that. So that is just a hint ahead, but you see it from the context, what you are dealing with, really, right? Head down is normally either the resistance to communicate or to relate to anybody, to be closed in, or is looking at a dead person. Yeah, that's head down. Head tilted is insecurity. That's like in real life. It's also in a family constellation. When a representative is tilting the head, that's some insecurities here. And then a head cycling, that is often a sign for a mental impairment. Head cycling, or the whole body swaying, or then running around in circles. That actually is a sign of a schizophrenic situation in person. And that's something you can really not, you can only manage, yeah, at best, Feet, important gestures, stamping or tremors, right? So that you need to see in the context what that means. But it could be anger, but it could be also anxieties. Or it could be literally a stubborn child energy. So whatever, you have to look at the context here. The face is obviously a very strong indicator for emotions. So we can, I don't know, there's lots of facial expressions, just looking at smiling, frowning, or sweating. Smile can be deceiving, as is laughter. Just because somebody smiles as a representative doesn't mean he's friendly. Most often it is the case. Sometimes it can be camouflaging deeper lying negative emotions, which you will find out. Frowning, you can see frowning is a sign that whatever you have suggested to say is not the truth. So if you say, okay, say to this other person yes, and they say yes, but they do this, yes, then you know they do it because you asked them to, but it's not true. And remember, you always have to check if what you suggest to say is true or not true, because if it's not true, you take it away and try something else. So the frowning is giving you this hint. Sweating is, well, maybe it's too hot in your room, but often it is anxieties, right? Fear, very often. So when we talk about gestures, and you see a representative with a gesture, and it could be very subtle, a very small gesture, ask them to amplify the gesture so they can feel the emotion that is behind it better, and then they can express it better. Yeah. So as an example, if you see a representative is kind of trying to stamp with the feet, but really, really subtle, yeah, then you ask him, stamp with your feet. And if they do that and then they feel like that's really good, and then they really stamp because they want to stamp, then they can tell you what emotion they feel now. And then they can say, I'm really angry, for example. And then you know already how to work with them, right? Or if it's like somebody is kind of lifting the arm just very slightly inside, say, just, you know, where would you want to go with your arm? Show us where, you know, how high do you want to go? And they may start to swing, and then all of a sudden you have this, what we call in German, Engelmacher situation, you know, this person who helps with abortion on a professional level, illegal abortion, or probably legal one, I don't know. Always check the overall body language. That gives also a lot of hints, right? Somebody crouching or standing up, or head here or shoulders down, or crossing arms. So this is another thing that you ask your representatives always, to not cross legs and arms when they work, to allow to fully connect with the morphic field and feel the information and the energy and the emotion that is coming with it. But if you ask somebody, and hands out of the pockets, lots of people, especially men, wants to have their hands in the pocket in a constellation, no? But if you ask them, okay, hands down, they put the hands down and then they immediately do this again, then you know it has to do with the role. So then you have to take it as a body language, actually, and not as an insecurity of the representative. Eyes are giving away a lot, being the windows to the souls. So when the eyes are closed, it's 95% that the representative is representing a dead person. You ask always the representative to open their eyes, yeah? You cannot work with representatives who have their eyes closed. That's a strict rule. Nobody can keep the eyes closed as a representative other than they are representing a dead person. If they are representing a dead person, let's assume you have a representative who has the eyes closed and you ask them to open their eyes and they say they can't, then you would ask them to lie down. If they feel a relief in lying down and then they feel better and they feel that's their right place, then you know they are representing a dead person. If they insist on standing up, but they want to keep their eyes shut, then you might want, this is one of the rare occasions where you might want to consider to exchange the representative. They might have really a problem, you know, looking somebody in the eyes or open their eyes. But dead people normally lying down. They feel better if they lie down. There is a situation, and you will learn about that in module 4, about the in-between world of the souls who have moved on, which we also call attachments, who show up in the family constellation who are dead, but they are moving around. They are not lying down. But they have their eyes open. Otherwise, they would run into something or somebody, right? So the fact that somebody insists on standing up and having the eyes closed is strange. So there's probably something going on with the representative. Now, when they lie down, talking about dead, then there's always the possibility the eyes are open. So if somebody lies down and the eyes are open, doesn't mean he's not dead. And the opposite is the case. They are dead, but the difference is they don't know it. Yeah. So here, can you, it depends on the situation, family constellation, either inform the representative that they are dead, or ask, do you know you are dead? And then say, no, I'm not dead. And they say, you are dead. And then they can close their eyes and feel peace, might not. Or somebody thought it was representing a dead person, but with the eyes open realizes they want to get up again. So then you would suggest, okay, try sitting up, standing up. Is that better? And when they feel better standing up and having their eyes open and not running around like a crazy person, then they are actually not representing a dead person. So they were just thought. No. So you always have to, be flexible and don't take the first impression for granted. That can all move. Can all move around. Eye contact is most important to relate and to get the healing movement going. There is no healing movement possible if somebody moves towards somebody else who's not looking at them. Yeah? It's like approaching from behind. At one stage, the other person of the relationship needs to turn around and look at. Otherwise, no reconciliation. Without eye contact, no reconciliation is possible. And also no honor and respect. So neither of the healing movements is possible without eye contact. So now this is the eye contact towards somebody. If somebody wants to go away from someone, cannot look in the eyes, well, that can be the start or the finish of a family constellation, right? The eyes up or down. So when we say the eyes are down, we're always looking at a dead person, which could be a child, a lost child, or a victim of some sort. Or then there is the situation when somebody, a representative, is looking into the distance. So the eyes are kind of, you can see that they are going far away, right? So this can have multiple meanings. It's just important that you notice it. Normally the movement goes towards where somebody is looking. So when you have a constellation and nobody looks at nobody, so there's no relating going on, then you need to find out where is the strongest energy and put another representative in their view to ignite the movement. But if nobody relates to anybody, there's nothing you can do, right? That's obviously a sign that the most important person is missing. And that often is the case when 2 or 3 representatives looking in the same direction. That's exactly where the missing person needs to be replaced. And you don't need to know who they are representing, right? That's not the point here. So we talked about cannot open eyes. Tears. So what happens if somebody's crying? So first of all, tears are always great and welcome. This is why you need lots of tissues and paper bins in your workshop. Tears are great. Tears are great relief. Tears are normally the relief that has denied for generations to somebody. And you always want to support the representative who's crying with saying that is good, he should continue, he should let it all out. Even if they feel kind of embarrassed, you have to give them the support that they feel good about it, that they can cry, that they feel they can cry there. Movements. So movements, family constellation is all about movement. So now let's look at the movements. Towards a person is to reconcile, obviously, or to give honor and respect. So that's it. Away from a person, you have 2 possibilities. Either a representative goes backwards away from a person, or they are turning around and go away from a person. Now, if they go backwards away from a person, there's a very strong relationship, right? That probably has to do with violence and trauma uh, um, and situations like this, right? If they turn around from a person and go away, that is indicating that the relationship has already ended and it's not needed anymore, under normal circumstances. If a person wants to go out of the door, yes, good, allow them to go. Yeah. So this representative is just telling that they either want to leave life, they either want to go actually and end their lives, or they feel they are not needed anymore in this situation because it has been solved and they are obsolete, right? But please don't leave them standing in front of the door. Make sure you ask them to come back in, right? When the constellation is finished. Don't forget about him. What is if a representative wants to move back to the seat? I would in general allow them to do that if they feel they don't not needed anymore and they don't want to leave the room. They just want to sit back because they feel their role has no impact anymore or never had one or was never necessary. That's all fine. They should go back to their chair. That's fine. You can always ask them to come back, right? You can always ask somebody who decided to sit when you decide, no, this person is actually needed to come back. This movement in circles is like this with the head in circles. It's normally if a person is circling the whole group or part of the group, or another person circling, then that is a strong sign for a mental impairment of whoever they are representing, right? And psychosis and schizophrenia is really hard to deal with and impossible to heal in this case. So you just have to manage that you probably just try to stop this movement and bear in mind that that's the case. Maybe even ask to sit down on the chair again. Yeah. And then you have seen, okay, in this in this family system, there's a case of schizophrenia or psychosis, and that you might not can help to the extent you could help other family systems, right? Sitting down on the floor is good. If they want to sit down, that's fine. They normally want to sit down because they realize they're probably representing a dead person or they're representing a child. Often a miscarried or aborted child. They normally sit down. They often not lie down. They prefer to sit down. If somebody as a representative wants to sit down and looks at a female representative, it is very likely that that's the mother. If they sit at the feet, of a female representative. Lying down, yeah, that's we talked about that. That's a sign for being representing a dead. Kneeling has two meanings basically. One meaning is that somebody needs to be, representing a child in an interrupted movement and make it smaller. So that's good to go on the knees. However, to be on the knees can be quite painful. So I suggest, especially when they are not, when the representative is not a young guy, to rather sit on the heels instead of kneeling, or sit on the buttocks. Yeah. The other case of kneeling is a religious gesture. If somebody is representing somebody who's very religious, and they want to be on the knees, then that is giving away that there is probably a religious belief system in this family system that has a strong impact and that you can use to find that what meant, right? By introducing God or introducing anything else, or just allowing them to kneel if they, they have often this atonement for my sin dynamic, that they feel a relief when they can kneel as a representative. That's already a movement, if you will. Fast movements and family constellations we don't want at all. At all. There is no need for a fast movement, ever. So a fast movement should be stopped. Every movement that is ignited by the morphogenetic field is slow. And as slower, as more authentic it is. When somebody wants to lie down, this lying down is like a woo, like a balloon that is slowly losing air. This is this lying down. If somebody just says kind of falls over and lies down, that is normally coming from the mind, right? Not from the field. Right? So always ask everyone to follow the movement slowly. When they walk around towards somebody, don't run, don't rush, slowly, step by step, and after every step, check in whether you still want to move. Because the field is very precise and there is a certain distance and you miss this distance when this movement is too fast, and when the right distance is missed, then it is also difficult or much more time intense to find that what means, right? So and if a representative is not staying in the correct place, they cannot feel what they are representing correctly, right? So slow movement, always, always, always. No movement, yeah, that's one thing. So if you have absolutely no movement in a family constellation, absolutely not, although you really followed to the T the teaching and you tried everything right, and still nobody moves, that is a sign for a family secret. That is the sign for a family secret. So instead of panicking because nobody moves, you know this is a hint from the morphogenetic field to add the family. Okay, we have an exercise here, but we also want to help Rocio with her gallbladder. So let's see what I think. Let me just see. Oh, that's a short one. We can do both, I think. Okay, so we do groups of 2 this time. So 3 groups of 2. The whole group has 6 minutes. And you are practicing gestures and observing gestures, yeah? So your partner is doing a gesture, eye, hand, head, whole body, whatever, and you are saying the emotion that you see behind it, yeah? It's just an exercise, lighthearted, nothing to achieve here. It's not a constellation. You're just practicing with each other, right? To observe gestures. All clear? Okay, cool. Then I open up the breakout rooms again.
Sorry, Maya, do we need to actually be like choose like a representative, like parents or something like that, or is just the two between us?
Sorry, what
You know
do
what I
you
mean?
say?
Is it just between us? And we just like, for example, I can look at someone and start like doing something with my hands, or it's just actually representing someone for that person. You know what I mean?
No, I don't know what you mean. Say
Okay,
it
is
again.
it just doing gestures? Let's say
Just
we're
gestures.
3. Okay.
Just
Okay.
gestures. Nobody's representing here. You're just thinking of
Okay.
gestures, and the other one needs to find out the emotion behind it. Or
Okay.
whatever we have just talked about. Like,
Yeah.
So when you look down, you would look down like this. And then the other one should say, you're looking at a dead person.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah? Clear? Okay, let's go. And 3 minutes each. Any questions you had in this little exercise, or is it all good?
It was
Nothing
clear.
unusual.
Yeah.
Good.
I just have some question about kneeling or lying, things that we can't see in the screen.
Yeah.
So, or when the feet are stamping, for example, feet movement. How
Um,
can you tell?
well, you would ask the representative if they feel they want to do that, or you would ask them to get up over the chair and kneel down. You can do that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Okay.
Good. Okay, is there any specific question yet after this little exercise, or shall we proceed to our little constellation?
I have a question.
Yes,
What
Adi?
happens if they crouch like this?
Yeah, crouching.
Like as in they're like, hugging the
Fetal
knee.
position.
Yeah,
Or
fatal position.
crouching.
Yeah, this could be
trying to-
that fatal position. This is in the context, obviously. It could be a dead or aborted child.
Victim. Okay.
It could be a victim energy. It could be, yeah, context, I would say. Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So now we are facilitating. Abby, you were not there yesterday. We had constellated Mana's gallbladder, and Rocio was representing the gallbladder, and she has revealed after that that she also has problem with her gallbladder, and that seems to bother her now, right? Since then. Okay. So let's look at your gallbladder, Rocio. Okay. So please unmute yourself. And then take a couple of breaths. Is there anything you want to share with your gallbladder? Or shall we just go right into it?
No, it's just hurting, like it hurts. Yeah.
And what is the history of your gallbladder?
I don't know, because I had it checked once and there is nothing there. So there is nothing, like, because apparent like there is a physical problem with it.
Yeah.
So
But it does hurt frequently.
yeah, it's in, like, the pain is here. It's all here. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all here. So it's, yeah.
And since when do you have that?
Oh, I will say, I think that the first time that I felt it is when I was 15 comes up. Yeah, in my mind. Yeah.
And what was when you were 15 or 14?
Sorry?
What happened in your life when you were 15 or 14?
I don't remember anything like it that has been like, yeah, nothing comes up like saying, oh,
Okay,
it's
that's
related
fine.
to this. Yeah. No,
Right.
maybe more, maybe, sorry, it might be 17 or 18. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's when I moved. I had to move. Yeah, that's because I was in Buenos Aires already when it started. So I think it's when I moved to Buenos Aires that it started.
Okay.
We moved back to Buenos Aires. Yeah.
With your family or on your own?
No, with my family.
So who's representing your gallbladder?
Ale?
And yourself?
Claudia.
Okay, we start like this. Take a moment to connect. What are you saying, Ale? We can't hear you.
Oh, I was no, sorry. I was just connecting with the morphogenetic field.
Okay. Claudia, how do you feel when you look at Ale?
I'm angry.
You're angry?
Yeah.
Mhm. Say to her, I'm angry at you.
I'm angry at you.
How's that for you, gallbladder?
I feel annoyed by client.
Say to her, I'm so angry at you.
I'm so angry at you.
No, Claudia, to you.
Ah,
She can't hear me. Rocio, who did the decision to move to Buenos Aires? Father or mother?
I think it was both. Well, it was my
What?
dad's. I think no, it was my mom. My mom made the call. My mom
Your
made
mom.
the decision.
Okay, who's representing your mom?
Mana, yeah.
Mana? Claudia has left us.
Yeah.
You might need another. Oh no, she's back.
Or I can be me if you want.
Mhm.
Sorry, my internet dropped.
Are you back now? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, Claudia. Look at Mana.
I can see Mana. Where are you? Ah, there. Yeah.
Hang on, I pin her. Uh, oh.
I feel a bit calmer.
Yeah. Look to gallbladder, Claudia.
Yeah.
Has anything changed?
Yes, I don't feel as angry anymore.
What do you feel now?
I feel afraid, to be honest,
Mhm.
but not angry, just afraid.
And Ali, how do you feel?
I feel like really I don't care. I really want to move on from this.
When you say I don't care, is that a genuine I'm not part of this, or is that I don't care how you feel?
I don't care how you feel.
Mana, how is that for you when you hear that?
My focus is at the client and I feel very dominating and like I want to control the client.
Look at gallbladder, Mana.
I feel guilty looking there.
Mhm. Ali, how do you feel looking at Mana, mother?
I feel like I blame her. I'm blaming her. It's her fault.
Yeah. Mhm. Client, when you
I
hear
am
that,
guilty of
yeah,
it.
Mana, what you say?
I am guilty of it. If she's accusing me, she's right about that.
Mhm. Okay, Mana, say to her, it was my decision.
It was my decision.
Mhm. Very good. How's that for you, Ale?
I feel much taller, and I feel like to say you are selfish.
Yeah.
And as I said, I grow.
Yeah. So just as an observation to everybody else, from the moment on Ali was representing the gallbladder, you can see how her nose is up.
Mm.
Yeah, just remember what I said before. So she's representing an arrogant child who's not in the right place, right? Hmm? So the right situation here is to make her small. Hmm? So we can try it. We can try the word, which is obviously please here, if she can say it or not, and then otherwise when she can say it, we make her smaller, right? Okay, so I'll say to Mana, please.
No, no way.
Mm-hmm. Very good. So now I would like you to make yourself smaller. Either go on your knees or lie down or just imagine you go or like this, yeah, or like this. So you look up to her. Has anything changed?
I feel ashamed.
Hmm. Now say please.
Please,
Please, mom.
please, mom.
You are the big one and I am the small one.
You are the big one. I am the small one.
And whatever you decide,
And whatever you decide,
I will not judge
I will not judge
because it's not my business.
because it's not my business.
Hmm. How's that for you, Ale?
Yeah, actually, I feel like she knows better.
Very good. Say again, please.
Please,
You
please,
decide.
you decide.
Hmm. Very good. Claudia, how's that for you?
I have a feeling I didn't realize beforehand that I wasn't breathing properly, but I can now really breathe properly.
Hmm.
And I'm still a little bit shaky, but not afraid like I was before.
Hey. Whom are you afraid of? Look at your mother and look at gallbladder. What is stronger?
Since the gallbladder has shrunk in size, it's not the gallbladder anymore. My focus is now on mother.
Yeah. Right. Say to your mother, I'm afraid of you.
I'm afraid of you.
Is that true or not true?
Yeah, it feels true.
Hmm. How is it, Mana?
I I agree. She's afraid of me, and I want her to be. I want everyone around me to be afraid of me.
Okay. When you hear that, Ale, how is it for you?
I feel like it is what it is. Yes, feels right for me what she said.
Good. So, Claudia, say to gallbladder, thank you.
Thank you.
I now see my problem
I now see my problem
for what it is,
for what it is.
and I don't need you to take it over anymore.
And I don't need you to take it over anymore.
I take care of it now.
I take care of it now.
Hmm. Very good.
Ay, sí.
Very good. Very good. And we leave it here. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Surathio, I don't know what you think about this. Does it ring a bell to you?
Might be. So my mom had an abortion, and I actually knew about that last year in a constellation. And it's been hard to swallow it for me. Like and I think that it's been hard for her, but she's taking definitely what Mana said, that she's taking responsibility of it. So
and your relationship to your mother?
I'm not sure if I'm afraid like of her. She was very strict when we were kids. She did like hit us a little bit, like but yeah, it's that was actually like, for me, it was like, wow, like I never felt like I was afraid of my mom, like afraid, like, oof, I'm gonna be.
Well, the gallbladder has taken that over, this energy.
Yeah.
So now that, in this constellation, this is back to where it belongs, between you and your mother. It has some space to now it's in the right place. Now you have to see how it comes up and allow it to come up and continue to work on it. Yeah.
Would it be like working with a gallbladder or?
No, the gallbladder is finished. It's your mother.
With the mom. Yeah.
And in this in your mother, there's definitely something systemic going on.
Yeah.
Well, we have enough time during the course to look at that. Yeah, lots of practice workshops. Okay, so we rounded up here. That was module 3. The video recording of module 3 will be available in about a week or so. Please check the community page. It will be linked there, and watch them and make some notes in your notebook. If you want to, if you have questions or want to discuss something in our next meeting, we can do that. And I next see you, I think, is at the Father's Day workshop, right? That's going to be interesting.
Can I say something before we go? I put some videos up from Bert Hellinger on the page, and I found the one, Julie, you were talking about yesterday about the coronavirus, and it has actually English translation. So I put that also in our Moa one as well. And also on the general one.
That's wonderful.
For everyone who is interested in that.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's lovely. Okay, I wish you a good rest of the day and night, and I see you soon.
See you.
Thank you.
Next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.